Hello, this is Kubo. In part 1, I talked about the general rule of team building, which is the one strategy meta. In Team Building Guide Part 2, I'm going to talk about how to build your team for different attributes, and I'm going to introduce effective appeal and how SP voltage is calculated. Before I start this video, I want to stress that this video will show an oversimplified way of team building. This guide is made to teach new players to build for attribute as detailed as possible within the length of a video without oversaturating the video with too many infos. Many deep aspects of team building are ignored for the sake of simplicity. A single team will not work for every song unless the members are highly limit broken, because every song has their own attribute and there are a total of 6 attributes in the game. If a member matches attribute, it gains a 20% bonus to their stamina and technique and a 20% extra voltage gain. In the first part, I talked about how only the appeal of your members in your main strategy matter in one strategy meta, so you only need to match attribute for your main strategy. Matching attribute for your backline will still boost their stats, but the only stat that matters in backline is stamina, and you should mostly rely on your frontline defender for stamina, not your backline. Backline is pretty straightforward, so I'll cover this first before jumping into frontline. Your backline is only there to support your frontline. Any card with appeal plus all passive is great. Other appeal plus passives such as same attribute and same type depends on how many of your frontline they affect. I will only use them if I don't have any appeal plus all anymore, or if the passive affects all 3 cards in my frontline. Remember to bring a cleanser if you are using an off attribute member in a cleansable song. In songs with high stamina damage, you might need a little stamina stick to increase your team stamina when your frontline defender is not enough. Backline is as simple as that. Now we get to frontline. Every song tends to decrease appeal of members who do not match attribute. Luckily, cleansing allows us to bypass this mechanic in some of the songs. However, there are many songs which are uncleansable too. The way you build for cleansable and uncleansable songs are different. You start by identifying the highest appeal member you have. Just sort your members by appeal and you will see it. I like to stress the importance of utilizing the sorting system. It is highly likely that your members are not going to have the same level of limit break. You should always sort by appeal to see what stat changes have happened to your members after limit break. When using this sorting system, it already takes passive skills and insights into account. That's another good reason to use this sorting system. I will take Circus Ruby as an example. Circus Ruby's passive increases appeal of same strategy by 7%. This value shown has already taken passive into account. If you look into her info, you can see that her base appeal is actually lower. The bracketed number beside it is how much appeal her passive and insight skills added. The appeal shown in this screen is exactly the sum of these two numbers. In case you don't know what I mean by passive and insight skills, it's this one right here. But what this doesn't show you is how passive affects other cards. You can't see how Ruby's same strategy passive affects other cards in this sorting system. It also does not take type merit and demerit into account, so you have to include them separately. Ruby is a skill type, but you can't see how her skill type demerit affects the voltage gain of the entire strategy. We get back to our team building. You can see my 2 highest appeal members are Kanan and Setsuna, who are at max limit break. Right now, they will outperform every other members in my team. I will exclude the first row of members for now because their appeal is too high. Okay, so now my top 2 highest appeal members are SP Karin and Voltage Daya. Or is it? The answer is no. Daya is number 1 and Karin is number 2 instead. Why? Because Daya is voltage type. She has 5% voltage merit. That merit increases voltage output of the strategy by 5%. There is more to voltage merit, as not only does it affect your tap voltage, it also affects your skill and SP voltage. This concept is a little bit too complicated to explain for now. For simplicity purpose, I will treat every voltage merit as if it gives 10% more appeal to the card itself only. The same thing goes for skill type demerit that decreases voltage by 10%. As for why it's not 5%, it's because I'm trying to include the effect it has on the strategy to the card itself only. I need to stress again, this is absolutely wrong. Voltage merit is way stronger than this. I'm telling you this oversimplified concept so you can proceed the game for now, but once you gain more experience about the game, you need to revise your concept on voltage merit and skill type demerit and how voltage is actually calculated. Voltage merit is a very powerful buff. For now, you need to know that. Let's include voltage merit for the card itself now for you to see better. You are going to use your highest appeal member as your point of reference. We start with cleansable songs first. Let's say you are building for Smile attribute. Our Smile members will get 1.2 times voltage gain. We'll now treat them like they have 1.2 times more appeal, while other members have their normal appeal. With bot bonus, this gets increased to 1.225 times. Most players reach 1.225 times attribute multiplier because you don't need memento pieces for that. Watch my video on board if you don't know what that is. You have to multiply all your smile attribute members by 1.225 for you to see their appeal after the boost. That's a lot of work if you have a lot of smile members. It's even more work when you need to build for 6 attributes. Instead of calculating forward, we calculate in a backward manner. Instead of multiplying every matching attribute cards by 1.225, we divide the highest appeal member who doesn't match attribute by 1.225 and compare it with all smile attribute members, so that the calculation only needs to be done once. And doing so will immediately show you which member is suitable. We put that into example. 9,830 divided by 1.225 equals 8,024 appeal. This is how much appeal a smile member needs to surpass Daya, who is not smile attribute. In this case, after school voltage Rin surpasses her. It is the same if you increase Rin's appeal by 1.225 times and not decrease Daya's appeals by 1.225 times. You will still find Rin's appeal higher than Daya's. Another smile scorer, Haunted Rina, does not surpass Daya even at smile attribute. That's if we only look at their appeal. In reality, Rina is still a better second scorer than Daya at smile because she has card synergy with Rin. Rin's passive increases appeal of smile attribute members, active increases smile attribute crit rate, but her skill increases voltage gain of first years. This means she is best used with smile first years members. Rina is smile and also a first year, so she will benefit from all of Rin's skill set while Daya won't. If we add Rin's passive effect into Rina's appeal, her appeal will become higher than Daya even without considering Rin's skill and active. Matching attribute also gives more skill and SP voltage. With this small difference in appeal, the attribute bonus definitely outweighs. Rin and Rina will be my scorer for smile. This video does not take card synergies into account because it is more complicated. Let me stress again, this video teaches new players to build for attribute in the fastest way possible. There is more to team building than this. Let's work out for 5 other attributes too. Pure attribute first. Hanamaru and Rina has higher than 8,024 appeal, so they are scorers for pure. Karin and I will be for cool. Yo and Rico will be for active if we don't consider skill set. Umi is actually better than Rico due to her strong skill set. Her skill increases voltage gain of all members. Her passive increases appeal of same strategy, which is one of the strongest frontline passive in the game. Her live show active is also one of the strongest in the game. It has a 30% chance to increase appeal for the entire sub. Now we look at Rico's skill set. Her skill is voltage generation, nothing wrong with that, but the problem is her passive and active, which only affects her own cards. There's little chance you will get another active Rico card. The scaling is also lower than Umi. That's why Umi is preferred over Rico. Elegant is straightforward. Daya and Yoshiko as scorer. Mari and Daya are for natural. After picking 2 scorers, it's time to pick a defender. Exclude every card which is not defender. As you can see, Rina has the highest appeal among all defenders. We divide her appeal by 1.225 and we get 6,007. Any defender with higher than 6,007 appeal will perform better than Rina at their attribute offensively. The defender for Elegance attribute is Rina. We scroll down the list of cards, find a defender with over 6,007 appeal for each attribute. Nozomi for pure attribute, Yoshiko for cool. Scroll down and we'll see that Hanamaru is the defender for natural. There's no higher than 6,007 appeal smile defender, so Rina will be the defender for smile. But I want you to pay attention to active attribute Hanayo and Ruby. Even though Ruby seems to have lower appeal due to skill demerit, Ruby has an offensive skill set. Her passive increases appeal of same strategy by 7%. Since skill demerit decreases by 5% only, does that mean her passive compensates her skill demerit, while her active, appeal plus song start makes her better than Hanayo at offense since Hanayo's skill set has nothing to do with offense? Not quite. Her passive does not compensate for her skill demerit despite the higher percentage due to how voltage is calculated. I'm not going to explain why in this video because it is very complicated. For now, you just need to know that appeal plus same strategy passive skill only partially compensates for skill type demerit. And her strong active will only compensate her skill demerit if it activates. If it doesn't activate, you will suffer from the demerit. On the other hand, Hanayo has very high crit rate. Crit rate is equal to technique multiplied by 0.003. If you like to, you can remember these ballpark values to help you convert technique to crit rate faster if you don't have a calculator. 100 technique equals to 0.3% crit rate, 1000 equals to 3%, and 10,000 equals to 30%. I use this to do fast calculation in my mind without a calculator. You can always take a calculator and multiply by 0.003. That's still the fastest and effortless way. Hanayo has way higher technique than Ruby. Besides, Hanayo also has a 15% crit rate bonus. In part 1, I said that if a member has base technique as her highest stat among the 3, she gets a 15% crit rate bonus. I follow a Japanese website I call this critical sense. One quick way of knowing a card has critical sense is by looking at its skill tree. If technique notes have higher value than appeal and stamina notes, the card has critical sense. This is because each note in the skill tree is meant to increase the stat by a fixed percentage of their base stat. If a card has technique as its highest stat, each technique note will give higher value. Critical sense will not be made available even if you boost a member's technique higher than her appeal. The high technique must come naturally from the card itself. A card will also not get critical sense if another stat is the same as technique. Technique must be the highest. It cannot be the same, it cannot be lower. Hanayo has naturally higher technique than her appeal and stamina, so she has the bonus. Her technique is 9976 multiplied by 0.003 plus 15%. Her crit rate is 44.93%. Here's a way of calculating how much crit rate contributes to voltage gain, called effective appeal. Here's the formula, and let's break it down. We are calculating the appeal when she is critting and when she's not. First, we calculate the appeal when she crits. Critical multiplier is 1.5 times by default, but it can be increased by using Bond Board. Without memento pieces, most players can already access 1.6 times crit multiplier. With 5 memento pieces, a player can access 1.8 times crit multiplier. 1.6 multiplier is more common, so this is the one I will use for this video. Change your crit multiplier accordingly once you unlock deeper into the Bond Board. The figurative appeal when Hanayo crits is 4917. Now calculate the appeal when she doesn't crit. This one is relatively straightforward. We get 3767. Add up the total, it's 8684. Do the same for Ruby, and you get 7598, which is lower than Hanayo by 1000. Now don't calculate effective appeal for every card you have. It will make team building very frustrating because it is a very long process if you do it for every single card. I suggest that you only do this when comparing between two members with very similar appeal, or between a member with critical sense and another member without critical sense. Anyway, Hanayo's crit rate is what sets the final difference, and we can conclude that her offense is better than Ruby. But Ruby has way more stamina than Hanayo, so Ruby is better at generating shield than Hanayo. Remember, the most basic job of a defender is to maintain your stamina at green level. Hanayo may have problem doing that if a song has high stamina damage, for example, Step 0 to 1, which has lots of stamina damage nodes. In that case, Ruby might be a better choice than Hanayo because she can do the basic job of a defender better than Hanayo. If Hanayo can maintain your stamina at green in a lower damage song, Hanayo is a better choice. We evaluate whether a defender can maintain your stamina at green first, then evaluate their offense. Defense comes first before offense for defender. The same can be applied even between two defenders with huge difference in their appeal. For Smile attribute, Fast Nico has lower than 6007 appeal, but her stamina is way higher. She benefits from skill attribute multiplier while Rina doesn't. Skill attribute multiplier is different from your normal multiplier for parameters. Skill attribute multiplier is only 1.1 times, not 1.2 times. Okay, my point is, Fast Nico has higher healing, so she is better in high damage songs. The same thing happened even in Rina's own attribute. I like to compare between Rina and this elegant Ruby. Ruby's appeal is nowhere near Rina's, but if a song has very large damage, for example Firebird, and a lot heart, and Shioriko's Solo of Death, Rina may not provide enough healing to maintain stamina at green. In that case, Ruby is a better choice even though her appeal is way lower. A defender's main job is still to maintain your stamina, offense is secondary. And there you have it. These are my frontline for 6 different attributes. Notice how everyone on my team has such different frontline. This is why a general team to tackle every song is not recommended. That's the team for Cleansable song. In Uncleansable songs, all non-matching attribute members will receive a 20% appeal decrease, so you have to build your team differently in Uncleansable songs. The decrease is not always the same in every song. Some songs have 10% decrease and some has 25%. But 20% is the most common amount, so I'm using that. Matching attribute members function at 1.225 times its normal strength while others at 0.8 times. The difference is 1.53125 times, which is not a beautiful number. I'm going to divide my highest appeal member by 1.5 times instead. You can still use 1.53125 if you want. Here's another card proof for demonstration. Kana has exceptionally high appeal. She will outperform every card even without matching attribute, and she's a stable frontliner for every attribute in this pool of cards. This usually happens because we put all our resources into upgrading a single card. The reason I use this as an example is to tell you to not blindly follow attribute because there's a chance your best scorer outperforms all other cards regardless of attribute, even in Uncleansable songs. But for the sake of this video, I'll assume that Kanan does not exist and we will try to build a team without Kanan. Divide Kanata's appeal by 1.5 and we know that other cards need more than 7025 appeal to perform better than Kanata at their own attributes. So let's build our team. For Smile songs, it's Honoka and Umi. For Pure, it's Shizuku and Yo. I and Maki for cool, Riko and Umi for active, Kanan and Kanata for natural. Kanata is the first scorer of Elegant, but there's no second scorer for Elegant. Shizuku is going to be the second scorer because an Elegant member needs 6798 appeal to surpass Shizuku, and neither Initial Daya or Fast Kotori reaches that. As for Defender, two defenders can be seen in this page, Fast Mari and Initial Hanayo. Other defenders need 3764 appeal to surpass Mari at their own attribute. Mari for cool attribute and Hanayo for active. Here's the cards after scrolling down. Ellie and Emma is for pure. Ellie has slightly higher appeal but she also has critical sense, so her offense is much better than Emma, but Ellie's stamina is very low and she might not heal you enough. Emma does a better job at protecting stamina. If Ellie can maintain your stamina at green, she is better, otherwise Emma is better. Remember, a defender's basic job is to maintain your stamina at green. Next, we have Riko for Smile, but personally I prefer Fast Nico over Riko. Fast Nico here has better healing power than Riko. Nico will help in Smile songs that has high damage, like Smile Expert songs. Skill type demerit is more devastating than what I show here in this video. Riko's skill type demerit will make her overall offense worse than Nico. Just remember that skill type demerit is way devastating than what I show here. Circus Ruby is also available, and remember the difference between Initial Hanayo and Circus Ruby. Hanayo has better offense but weaker defense, Ruby has better defense but weaker offense. Choose Hanayo for low damage song and Ruby for high damage ones. This Rina down here has 4400 appeal, so she's the defender for Elegant. Well, not really. Mari has a powerful skill set. She has appeal plus same strategy passive and appeal plus song style active. They are one of the strongest of their kind. Mari also has critical sense and Rina does not. Now we are comparing two cards, one with critical sense, one doesn't, so it's time to bring out effective appeal calculation again. To save you the calculation of it, Mari has a better effective appeal. Rina's healing is also not impressive, so Mari is overall better. There's no natural defender, so Mari will be used for natural. And there we have it, 6 different teams for Uncleansable songs. The final optimization you can make is your SP unit. In the last video I showed you this formula. Finally, it's time to dive into it. The SP voltage shown in-game does not include some aspects of SP voltage calculation, and it may be misleading to players. If you are not into calculations, you don't need to understand this formula fully. You can ignore everything I said about the formula, but please focus on the significance of this formula. Anyway, there are 2 components to this formula. The first step is to calculate how much SP voltage a card contributes individually. Technique has a higher effect on SP voltage than appeal, while appeal only translates 1-to-1 into SP voltage. Step 1. Multiply technique by 1.2 because it has a default multiplier of 1.2. Step 2. If the card matches attribute, it gets an attribute bonus. Attribute bonus is 1.2 times by default, but many can access 1.225 times through board bonus as mentioned. 1.2 default multiplier times 1.225 attribute multiplier gets us 1.47. Finally, we add our appeal in to our multiplied technique and we get the SP power of an individual card. What does this tell us? It tells us how technique plays a much bigger role than appeal at SP voltage. Technique already has a 1.2 multiplier by default. Additionally, attribute matching bonus only affects technique but not appeal during SP power calculation because appeal is only included after technique gets its default 1.2 multiplier and 1.225 attribute multiplier. This means a card with not enough appeal or effective appeal to be used in the frontline, nor does it have a backline passive, may be resurrected to be used solely as an SP unit due to its high technique. For example, Initial Hanamaru, Bad Kanan, or just any card that has high technique. But don't start replacing 3 members in your SP unit with 3 high technique members yet. Keep in mind that although appeal does not affect SP voltage as much as technique, having high enough appeal can still overpower high technique. It's usually the case where 2 of your frontline scorers are so well fed that their appeal are very high. Not even a card with high technique can overpower the scorer's appeal at boosting SP voltage despite all the multiplier on technique. The defender is the one who will get replaced because defenders usually have low appeal and technique, with some exceptions like Fast Mari and Street Girl Setsuna who have high technique. Using the pool of cards just now as an example, for pure attribute, I'm using Ellie or Emma as defender. I'll use Emma as example, but this card, Fast Kasumi, has higher appeal and technique. She will be used solely as an SP unit. Now some players confuse what I said and they completely replace Emma with Kasumi. That's not what I meant. You still need your defender in your main strategy. The correct way to set the team is to switch the position of Kasumi so that she's an SP unit while Emma is still in the same strategy as your scorer, just placed outside of SP unit. Members within the SP unit can come from any strategy. Next, we proceed to step 2 of this formula, which calculates total SP power. Once you get the individual SP power of all 3 cards, add them up and multiply by the total SP voltage bonus from bottom board of all your cards. While this factor, it doesn't change the way you build your team, so you can just ignore this. Finally, a bonus is given based on how many members in SP unit matches attribute. This attribute bonus is separate from the one we see in part 1. In this part, all 3 individual SP powers are added together, then given this multiplier. So this number includes both appeal and technique, which means this attribute bonus affects the appeal and technique. Whereas in part 1, the multiplier only affects technique. Anyway, one matching attribute gives 10% extra SP voltage, but subsequent ones only gives extra 5%. But it's still good enough. At least try and match one attribute if possible. This step further stresses the importance of matching attribute, as not only will it increase individual SP power, but it will also increase the entire SP unit too. The SP power in game does not account for matching attribute bonuses of both step 1 and step 2, which is why we need to re-optimize SP unit ourselves to account for such a big difference. I highly recommend you use Suyo SP calculator to find out your optimal SP unit. It will help you score much better, and possibly it may be the difference of A rank and S rank. Here's the summary of this video. To optimize scorer for different attributes, divide your strongest scorer who don't match attribute by 1.225 for cleansable songs and 1.5 for uncleansable songs. For defender, find out whether the defender can maintain your stamina at green first based on song damage and the card's defensive power, then compare their appeal using the same method as scorers. Effective appeal calculates how much crit rate contributes to the final voltage using this formula, where you are calculating the times the card crits and the time it doesn't. Use this when comparing 2 cards with similar appeal or between a card with critical sense and another without. SP voltage calculator has 2 parts. Part 1 is individual SP power of each card. It tells us how important technique is because it gets a 1.2 multiplier plus 1.225 attribute multiplier, or 1.47 in total. Part 2 is the total SP power of SP unit, which further stresses how important matching attribute is. Use Suyo's SP calculator to find out your optimal SP unit. And finally, as detailed as this video may seem, this is still an oversimplified way of team building, and its purpose is to help new players understand how to build for attributes as optimal as possible without going through too much detail. Thank you for sitting through this long video. I'd like to thank everyone for School Idol Festival Court who gave me advices on this video. Also, huge shout out to my first Patreon, Super Penguin 7. This means a lot to me. If you'd like to support me, I put my Patreon link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next part.